Is the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to add my thanks to the members of the panel for your testimony, which is a great help to the committee and to the communities that you serve, as well as to your industry. I want to follow up on that issue of the need for regulatory relief. Mr. Pinkett, in your testimony earlier today, I found it very insightful that you're talking about when the regulators come to your community bank, to your institution, with the full weight of all their regulations and the examinations and the sort of impact that has on your ability to operate in the real world as a community bank, trying to make loans, trying to be responsive to the customers that you serve and that you want to serve. I'm hearing the same thing from the community banks in Pennsylvania, the communities that I represent. I've got a comment here from a community banker in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, not far from where you are in New Jersey. He says, "We don't believe that the regulators understand that their actions and the way they go about their business does impact our ability and willingness to lend and conduct commerce. They just look at their job as enforcing the regulations and not the negative impact of their actions and what they have on the economy. While this condition has always existed, in the current environment, it is material." And Mr. Barr earlier was talking about, I think he was discussing the issue of the lack of new charters, the consolidation. We're losing banks. People don't want to go into the risk of creating a small community bank in this regulatory environment that we have. The last de novo bank in Pennsylvania, I think, was about 5 years ago. It's a small bank in my community, Monument Bank. They started 5 years ago. They have 40 employees. More than half of the employees are earning $50,000 or more. But what I'm hearing for the last 5 years is that nobody wants to start a bank under the current regulatory environment. Those banks that exist don't want to expand. Any new jobs that are created are jobs that are designed directly to deal with all these massive government regulations coming out of Washington. If there was one thing that we could do here on this committee and in this Congress to help reverse that trend, to get people to start community banks and take those risks, which ultimately will help the community, what would that one thing be? Mr. Pinkett?
Well, I would say the one thing I would ask is that you help the regulators, encourage the regulators to recognize their dual mission, right? They've got to protect the economy, and so we need regulations. They've got to keep us from making bad decisions that would harm the institutions, shareholders, and of course the taxpayers. So we need regulations, but they've got to do that in a way that helps us build the banks so that we can better service the customers. We need regulations for consumers, and so that we don't offer products that are harmful, because some products are out there that are really harmful to consumers, and they need to be regulated out, because everyone is not of the same character as the folks you've selected today, and they're doing business in harmful ways. But we've got to do that in a way that encourages the banks to be successful, that allows them to be successful, encourages them to do a better job of managing the risk associated with this business, because it is a high-risk business.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Loving?
I would say that from the regulatory perspective, tiered regulation or scaled regulation is imperative to our industry. I mean, the risk model that I have and the risk model of one of the largest mega banks is significantly different. And most community banks across the country operate in a different risk model, but yet we have to face the same regulation that the largest of the large face and the costs related to it. So I would say tiered regulation or scaled regulation to the risk and size of the institution.
Mr. Kim?
Yeah, I would just say the one-size-fits-all, as Mr. Loving said, and the more one-size-fits-all doesn't work, and we need clarity, and we need coordination to the extent there's overlap with the regulators. And we want to follow the rules. We may not like the rules, but we'll follow them, because that's what we do. Bankers, most of us are kind of rule followers. We don't want to get in trouble. So you've got to make it clear for us, and that will enable us to comply. And then we get opportunities like this to try to make some changes around the edges where there needs to be change.
Yeah, I mentioned in my opening statement about the anxiety I've been hearing with respect to the QM rule. I've got this small community bank in my hometown of Levittown. Mr. Terry Sager wrote to me about his concerns about no longer being able to lend outside the box, and Mr. Barr was talking about what he was referring to as character loans that they make in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We make them in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as well. Those loans that I guess you're being told now you're not really going to be able to make them. You look somebody in the eye, you know that they're going to be able to make that payment. You know that they have a good idea and that they're going to be successful, but you're now being told you can't do it. Any anecdotal, any particular case you want to talk about, a loan that you were able to make in the past, as somebody was able to go on and build a business and create jobs, that you're concerned under these new QM rules, you're not going to be able to make?
Well,
can I just say, if there is someone who can look a person and I know they're going to repay the loan, I'd like to hire that person. So I mean, some of this is, just, I think, just a little too far. So I hear bankers say that also, but at the end of the day, there's got to be some analysis and assessment about the capability of the person, whether it's a consumer or a business owner, and that should be fair and consistent. And I think all we're saying is what, piggyback on what Mr. Kim said, is let's find rules that we would like to follow as opposed to rules that we have to follow, because he doesn't want to run his bank into the ground. He doesn't want the taxpayers picking up the tab for his work. He doesn't want to explain to his kids how he was a lousy manager and a steward of resources in this country any more than anyone in any of the regulatory agencies wants him to have that conversation. So I think we've got to be careful about going too far in the other direction also, which is to say that looking you in the eye, I can tell you're going to pay me back. I think we need some rules, we need some regulations. Let's just make them fair and reasonable, and then we'll all want to follow them.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.